To the Healthy and Wealthy Retirement. My name is Mark Struthers. I'm your host. Forgive the fidgeting. Welcome to the Healthy and Wealthy Retirement. The fidgeting, we're still getting used to our little office/studio in Edina. Today we are talking about a book that's given the nature of this YouTube channel podcast, not horribly unusual because we try to touch on things that outside of talking financial planning numbers, but we're talking about Atul Gawande, and I know I butcher that name all the time. Being Mortal. Book is Being Mortal. An excellent book recommended to me by some colleagues, some other fee-only financial planning folks. I guess, well, friends too. I hope they consider me a friend. I know I do. I consider them friends. The book Being Mortal was very good. Now, one advisor called it a page turner. That was a little strong. So for me, for a page turner, would have to be like The Godfather or something, something that's a little, more dramatic, I guess. But it was a very good book. I think anyone who has dealt with end-of-life care with a loved one can appreciate this book. Probably like me, wish they would have read it before really close family members got sick. I think if you're over 45, it's a good book to read in anticipation that your parents are probably going to need your guidance on some of these questions. And obviously, if you are over 65, definitely over 70, 75, I think reading this book is a good idea. I think especially post-COVID, we all, I had family members who got really, folks got really sick post-COVID, hospitals and long-term care, and we had to deal with some of the stuff brought up in this book. And there's a lot of parallels between some of the stuff he talks about as far as patient decision-making for healthcare and retirement planning. Obviously, healthcare is a big part of financial planning. We're not doctors, but we certainly understand the role of a healthcare directive. We help clients organize their lives and get some of these things done, and also maybe work with how these might fit into some of the other things, financial things might have, whether it's the insurances or assets or whatever the case may be, or the estate planning piece, some of the legal documents that come into play. But he has 4 questions that I think anyone should start to think about if they're deciding on a medical procedure or course of action, but also for retirement planning, financial planning generally, but specifically retirement planning. So one of his questions is, what are your fears and hopes? And when you think about healthcare, in the book, he talks about, like, I think for one patient, it was missing a wedding. This wedding was very important. So, if the care might have extended life, but they would miss out on these things, or just the quality of life. You can imagine the trade-offs. It's really tough until you're actually there, it's really tough to get an idea what the struggle with that decision is, but you trade an extra 12, 24, even 36 months, but the quality of life is going to be really bad versus, having good quality life for only 3 to 6 months. Tough questions, but they're ones that you should ask. You need to be your own advocate. You need to be an active participant. I heard the quote, an active participant in your own rescue. So the quote, I think, was being credited to Pat Riley regarding basketballs and trading, but it applies to healthcare as well. You need to not just go along with what the doctor says. This is where having family as advocates as well during stressful times, especially healthcare, is critical. But as he points out in the book, a priority has been made to focus on safety more important than living a good life, kind of like in my example. And I think part of it is, that could be why our healthcare costs are so high, is that if we just throw a bunch of tests and aggressive treatment at everything, not only is the cost huge for everyone, but does it actually do more harm than good? And it's an emotional decision. Quite often it's a moral decision. But it's a question you should ask. It's a question you need to, and actually ask these questions early. This is why giving some examples in the healthcare directive is huge. Give your loved ones and yourself as much ammunition as possible. Those same questions apply to retirement planning. When you think about what are your fears and hopes, what are your goals? Is your goal to really enjoy your 60s and 70s? Maybe still, worry less about long-term care, maybe in your 80s or 90s. Maybe it's about coming up with some sort of balance, but these are questions where to make a good decision, you need to ask them. What is your number 2 is what is your understanding of your situation and possible outcomes? And you again, healthcare, you can kind of see if you're going to have treatment, but it means you have to go in for kind of really harsh monthly follow-up treatments, and you might extend life even 2 or 3 years, but that quality of life and, maybe there are tubes attached to you that you have to participate in your care is in that quality of life and your ability to get around is just maybe horrible in all likelihood. Again, that's why I find interesting. eh, you kind of have to go with the probability. You're trying to make the best decision on imperfect information. This is where you rely on the doctors and maybe some other data to say what's the probability. And the same with financial planning. We don't know what inflation is going to be like for the next 30 years. We're making our best guess based on historical data, and other factors. When I come up with our long-term core inflation for our financial planning, I take a number of different factors. We're making an educated guess. We're making an educated guess on what certain investments will do. Stock market returns, bond market returns. We're guessing at your expenses. We don't know for sure. So, understanding where you're at, with your healthcare. This is reality, and this are possible outcomes. And same with financial planning. If you see it a lot with folks with pensions, it's understandable. People are living lives and having families, but quite often I get a lot of folks with pensions that come in and they think the pension really has no flaws. I'm making X amount, I get a 90% placement ratio. That should be good enough. Oh, if you had a 3% inflation adjustment, yeah, that would, you're still dealing with some unknowns. There's still some risks there. But when most time I see them, they're 1 or 1.5% inflation adjustment. That pension is going to be powerful initially, most likely in retirement. But you could see where in 2022, when inflation was, what was it, for 12-month period, 7, 8, 9%, your purchasing power of that pension dropped dramatically. Now it was short-lived, but that's why a lot of folks, and I think it's true with healthcare too. A lot of folks wanted to throw some papers at the advisor and say, "Give me a number." They don't want to be an active participant in their own financial plan, old healthcare. I know the quote is an active participant in your own rescue. And I don't think Pat Riley actually said that. I think it comes from somewhere else, but the concept is the same. You have to be your own advocate. If you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, and then you kind of just want to get a ballpark, nothing wrong with that. But when you start getting within 10 years or 5 years of retirement, you do need to be an active participant. You need to understand, just like with the healthcare, you don't have to be a doctor, but you need to understand your situation. Number 3, he has, what are the trade-offs you are willing and not willing to make? And for healthcare, it's a big one. If the treatment, if you're willing to trade the side effects and the treatment and what maybe the cost and whatever else for that longer life, then if you're making an informed, educated decision and you know what that looks like, good. In the book, he talks about folks would much rather have a few months of quality versus an extra couple years of decreased quality of life. And that's the same with financial planning. If your biggest concern is simply outliving your money, then you might have to have a bigger asset size. You might have to be willing to downsize. Are you willing to make those trade-offs? If your biggest concern is enjoying your 60s and 70s, when you're healthy enough to do it, then are you willing to adjust your spending according to one of the spending models we talk about, guardrails, floor and ceiling, based on market performance? Are you willing that if you have a bad sequence of returns, are you willing to cut back on that travel expense? If not, then, where are you willing to give? So you can see where these questions for financial planning are really are really good. Number 4, he has, what is the best course of action that best serves this understanding? Based on fears and hopes, your situation, your understanding of where you're at and your trade-offs, what course of action? Because just like with the healthcare, we're making an educated guess. Is it best to retire at 62 because you don't want to pass away at 75 with a large bank account with no no memories, no ROM, return on your memories? Are you afraid of missing out on grandkids when they're little, where maybe later in life you might, you have less chance of outliving your money, but maybe you're not healthy enough to enjoy them, or they're young adults or adults and they're living their own lives. So it's about making an informed decision, and that's reading this book. I found it compelling to help people prepare them for uh, making better decisions for healthcare and end of life care, but also making better decisions for retirement planning, because you need to be an active participant for both. Because if you are an active participant, you are probably going to have a healthier, a wealthier, and a happier retirement. Don't forget to hit subscribe, hit it.